Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jane, the Digital Event Coordinator at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. We are part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges by creating use of technology. Today, we are very glad to have you and then join us for the budgeting and reporting in Xero. When is it enough and when do you need more with Mike Devine. Mike is a CPA and CEO of Xero Australia. He has been involved in accounting system for not-for-profits since before the implementation of GST in Australia, and has spent most of the past 20 years designing and developing tools to take time out of the budgeting and reporting process. His award-winning Xero application is available as a donation through Connecting Up and TechSoup. Before we begin, we'll start with a bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type into the questions box and I'll be here to assist you. And if you have any questions during the sections, please also type into the questions box and Mike will get them answered in between the sections. We are going to have two sections later. One is about the budgeting and one is about the reporting. So we have the Q&A for 2 times. So after the first part, we will do the Q&A and the second part, Q&A. So get ready for that. And then you can always just, even now, you can just type the questions if you have any. We really encourage you to ask as many questions as possible to make it very interactive. But please note that your comments and questions will not be appear to the entire group. Please note that the webinar is being recorded. The presentation deck and the recording will be sent to you in 1 to 2 business days. And also, there's a very short survey at the end of the webinar. Please help us to complete that for even better experience in the future. All right, thank you. And now I'll pass on to Mike for today's section.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I should probably say for those of you in New Zealand. So, welcome, and what we're going to do today is have a look at the budgeting and reporting process in Xero. 10 years ago, I think hardly anybody in the not-for-profit sector was using Xero. 5 years ago, not very many were, but in the last year or two, we've seen a lot more interest from not-for-profits in Xero. And so I thought one thing I might do first is just do a quick poll, if we can, please, Jean, just to ask you what accounting system you are using and
no worries.
Who's using Xero or thinking about it.
Can you see the poll, Mike?
Yes, I can.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So now
if you can just give us some idea of where you are on that process, and that will help me shape today's webinar a little bit and make sure I give you relevant information and don't tell you all the stuff that you already know.
All right, we got the results.
Excellent.
Can you see the results?
Yeah, just need to.
Yeah, enlarge the.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got some people who are thinking about Xero, some who are started on the journey, and some who've been using it for a few years. And there's 1 or 2 of you who've are in that more than 5-year group. So we've got a good span there. So thank you for that. So
No worries.
So what I want to talk about today is really about, what are the good bits of budgeting in Xero for many I am doing this from a not-for-profit perspective. If you're running a small business, I think the answers to these questions would be slightly different. Maybe not a lot, but they'd be slightly different. Just because of the complexity of small business, of of not-for-profit budgeting. So we'll look at the positive things and what you can do in budgets in Xero, and particularly for those of you who might be thinking about Xero, how it differs from, for example, budgets in MYOB, which some of you may still be using, and there are still plenty of not-for-profits using MYOB. It's not like everybody's using Xero. But then also look at some of the limitations of those budgets, and when it's time to start thinking of, do you need something more? Are there better ways of doing it? Is it taking you too much time because of those limitations? And then we'll take a similar approach then in the second half, looking at reporting and what you can do in terms of management reporting, and a little bit of emphasis there on the reporting of those budgets and what you can get out of those, how you can pull budget reports together, what you can do, what you can't do, what's easy to do, what's hard to do. So let's have a look through that. As Jean said, we'll stop for questions after the budgeting section, and then after the reporting section again, we'll stop for more questions. So feel free to ask questions, happy to answer them. And the idea is that you should leave this session knowing a bit more about budgeting in Xero and reporting in Xero. And some of the things that I do like about Xero's budget compared to, and I think MYOB for years has been the main accounting system of choice in the not-for-profit area. A little bit of QuickBooks out there as well, but the tracking category budgeting in Xero, I think, is reasonably good as accounting system budgeting goes. You can do budgets by tracking category. You can have multiple versions of your budget, so you can do your approved budget that's set at the beginning of the year and then do a forecast that you amend during the year. And you can do that tracking category by tracking category. You can do monthly budgets, which any of those of you moving from MYOB will find a relief. Some of you will just think, well, isn't that obvious? And you can also do multiple years of budget. So it's not just this year plus next year. You can go, I think, about 4 years ahead. So, and we'll have a look in a moment at the way you create budgets in Xero and look at what you can do there. But first, I might just talk about some of the limitations of the budget, so that we'll look at the positive and negative aspects of Xero's budgets. You can't quickly create a budget. You can export a budget to Excel, make changes, import it back in again, and that's a reasonably easy process, except you can only do it one tracking category or project at a time. You can't do all of them at once. And I find the management of the different budgets is quite complex, and as you'll see in a moment, the different versions or scenarios of your budgets, the approved, the reforecast, etc., needs to be created individually, each tracking category level, and there's no connection between them, so you can't sum all your tracking category budgets, for example, to get the organization level budget. Those sort of things. They're not, if you're in a small organization, you've either got no tracking categories or you've only got a handful of them. It's not a big deal. You can work around that, and it's perfectly functional budgeting, as you'll see in a moment. You can't do anything complex with, or even mildly complex in that with the creation of budgets, like formulas. You can't create your wages budget from the number of people you've got and the amount you're paying them, or or look at the your number of participants you might have in a program, and those sort of non-financial drivers. There's no scope in Xero's budgets for adding those, and the reporting gives you 2 or 3 different ways of looking at things, and when we look at the reporting in a bit more detail afterwards, you'll see you can customize the reports to, and they're reasonably flexible, but fiddly. Fiddly is the short word. Let's have a look at what budgets look like in Xero. So this is just the Xero demo company, and I've just played around with it a little bit, but under accounting and reports, it's not quite a report, but that's where they've put it. It's the budget manager is what you're looking for. And this is where you create and edit your budgets. And so Xero has an overall budget, but you can also create budgets for individual tracking categories. So I've got regions here of East, North, and something else. I can't, South, I think. And you'll see for North, I've got a main budget and a revised forecast. I've got a main budget for East, but when I created my revised budget for East, I just named it revised, and that would cause me trouble down the track because it's not obvious that that's the revised budget for East. I can remember that because I did it just last week. So you have to be careful with your naming structure of your budgets. But having said that, being able to create those sort of budget versions isn't something that you can do in many small business accounting systems. So I see that functionality as a positive of Xero's budgeting. It's something that does give you flexibility of your reporting. You can report against the main budget, you can report against the revised budget. So if we take my main budget for North, for example, and you'll see the default display shows you actuals for 3 months before the start of your budget, and you can start it from not quite any period, but it'll go back 12 months, defaults to the beginning of your financial year. So that's July for those of us in Australia, April in New Zealand or UK. And then you can show actuals, which is useful sometimes because, knowing what the actual sales or the actual interest income was for those 3 months helps you to set the budget for the next 3 months, 12 months, or whatever you're doing. Yeah. You can get a wide view of this here, which will fill the whole screen, which is good because the scroll bar sinks down the bottom there, but you can scroll across. You can just get rid of those actuals columns if you want to, and you can show 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or 24 months, or there is, yeah. And then when you're editing a budget, excuse me, so if I want to put in my advertising here and I just put $1,000, I get a green arrow there, which will effectively copy that budget across to the rest of the months. So I can say apply that amount per month. You can adjust it by a dollar value. So I could add $10 to it each month, or or by a percentage, increase it by 5% each month. I don't find those types of adjustments terribly useful very often. I think once or twice in my last 20 years of doing budgets, I've had a need for that type of budget formula. It's not the way most businesses work in my experience, but and if I start halfway through the year here, let's just do $100 for the bank fees, I can apply that to the remaining months. So you don't have to start in July. You can start any point there and copy those figures through. Now, they do save automatically. It does show you your net profit month by month. And I guess that's one of the other limitations of the budgets here. They are just profit and loss budgets. You can't do a balance sheet budget. So just bear that in mind. It's, especially for small organizations, a profit and loss budget is all you want. Small sporting club or community center or something, you just want a profit and loss budget month by month, and you just want to look at that at your monthly board meetings. And I find this perfectly adequate for that sort of scenario. You can, somewhere down the bottom here, if I can scroll down, yeah. So you can export that budget. Oh, I should save it first. So you can export it to Excel. And if I open that, you'll see it's fairly simple format. If I just drag that across there. So similar format to what we've just seen on screen, and you can then make changes. So if you've got any complex calculations to do them in your spreadsheet. So if we put 4,000, if I do that, if I save that, I think I can now import that. And it does give you the option of downloading a template when you go to the import option, but we've already just exported it. So we just browse for that file that we've just exported, which will be in my downloads folder, I think. There you go. Open that, import. And just confirms that we're importing it to the North main budget, and 32 accounts have got updated budgets, and you can see what dates are affected, and that's pretty much every month there. So let's just confirm that, and then it will import it in. So simple process, and there's those $4,000 amounts that I put in my budget, and I can save that there, make further changes. So it's not anything complex, and you can just do the export and import one tracking category, one budget at a time. So so the limitations there are, you can't do, if you've got a big organization with 50 tracking categories, and you want to update all their budgets, you've got to export them one by one, import them one by one, which is a bit of a tedious process. So it's about the scale of the organization you're working for. If you've got 5 tracking categories or no tracking categories at all, and you're just working at the organization level, it's pretty simple to edit these budgets, and from there you can run reports on them. So maybe we should have a look at the budget reports now. And this is going to sort of overlap with some of the stuff we'll talk about later, but in the second half. But there's a couple of basic preset budget reports. There's the budget summary and the budget variance, but I find you don't get very far with the standard reports in Xero. You really need to customize the layout to get what you want. But this one, similar, it's got a similar approach to the budget manager where we've just edited the budgets, where you select which budget you're doing. So if we take that North main budget again from July 21, and you can choose to different periods. So if you're doing quarterly reports, for example, you could select 3 months there and how many periods do you want. So let's just do 4 because we've only got 12 months worth of budgets. And that gives me my quarterly budget for my North main budget. Yeah. So if I want to see the budget, I want to send it to someone else, I can then print that. I can export it to Excel or PDF or Google Sheets, and then send that to my board, my manager, whoever, and say, this is the budget for the next 12 months. Simple stuff, but you know, for smaller organizations, more than enough. If we go back to reports again, the other main one is the budget variance, and I generally use the new versions of the reports because you can customize the layouts there more than you can in the older ones. And I have played around with this one a little bit already, but by default we're showing, let's do year to date. We'll have some better numbers there, and then I can filter it on one of my regions, or we can just do it at the organization level. So let's just do that to start with, and just look at the default option. So we get year-to-date actuals compared to the overall budget and a variance, and it does show us there whether that's favorable or unfavorable. You can do the percentage as a variance as a percentage. If I chose this month, I would get the month there and then the year-to-date columns over here. So that probably makes a bit more sense. And you know, fairly standard report, your net profit at the end. And we'll come back in a moment and look at how you can customize those reports. But that's the standard report that you get. There's a few simple options, like do you want to do this on an accrual or a cash basis? And do you want to show or hide the account codes? And you can show decimals or whole numbers. So if I get update there, I'll get whole dollars, which is better for most people. You know, most people don't care too much about the cents at this level of reporting. If I want to look at one that while there's a filter there on the region, so if I select North there, for example, and update that, it's showing the actuals for my North region, but it's still set at the overall budget. So you would need to actually edit the layout to select the North budget rather than the overall budget. And as I said, we'll come back to that in shortly, but just I have prepared one earlier. If we go reports, custom, budget to actual year-to-date East, I did customize the layout of this one. So I've got actual, sorry, that's my main budget for East. That's my actuals for East, and that's the variance. And I've customized the report to do that. So you can do that. You could potentially show, you know, actuals budget variance for East, actuals budget variance for North, all on the one report if you wanted to. So there's a bit of flexibility about what you can do there, but the most flexible stuff comes from editing the report layouts. And we'll come back and have a look at that in a moment. Jean, do we have any questions from anybody on what we've covered so far?
All right, let me see. So far, it looks like the presentation is very clear, so we don't have much questions now. But
Okay.
hang on. Oh, we just got a comment. Let me put this up. So it's an earlier comments from John. He's saying that he uses MYOB 15 years ago, like for 15 years already, and then just starting to use a Xero. So
Yeah.
yeah, that brings him here, I guess.
Yeah.
And then
And
Annie is saying
yep.
she.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say in response to that, I do think Xero's budgets on, especially on that tracking category level, are a lot more flexible than the job budgets that you get in MYOB. Was there a second one there as well, Jean?
Yeah, so Anne is asking how to create a budget from the Vista. Sorry, I need to assign this to you because I think it's a specific terms.
Okay.
So I just historical, okay. So how to create a budget from the historical actual?
Not very easily is the short answer. You would need to export that budget template and then export a report with the actuals, make your changes in Excel, so copy them into that template and then import the budget template again. It's yeah, I find it a bit of a clunky process. There's no simple, easy way to do it. Unless there's somebody here who knows more about Xero than I do, but I haven't found a way of doing it.
No worries, thank you, Mike.
So yeah, so there are limitations to what you can do in the budgets, and it's about deciding whether Xero's enough for you or not. So let's turn and have a look at reporting now, and we'll look at some of the. That's not the screen I wanted.
Yeah, I
I
think we
wanted that
got
one.
Mike,
Yeah.
if you want to answer
Sorry,
the
what was
last
that?
question.
Yeah.
I said we got one last question.
Ah, yes. Sorry.
So I just assigned that to you. So the question is about how would you rate Xero to Sage Handy Ledger? I'm not sure if I pronounce it wrong, so I just assign it. Yeah.
I'm not that familiar with Sage Handy Ledger. Where I have come across it has been for accountants at the tax return level, and I know a lot of accountants who use it there. I don't actually know of anybody using it for general day-to-day accounting, so I'm not really qualified to do that comparison. I don't think, except it sounds like an unusual comparison to me. My understanding of Sage Handy Ledger is that it's got a different purpose to Xero. It's not meant for general day-to-day accounting. I hope that's some help to you, but happy to. Jean will give you my contact details afterwards. Happy to take that discussion offline and see if I can find somebody who can answer it better than me for you. Yeah.
No worries. Yes, I'll definitely share your information, your contact details to everyone after this. So he's actually making a comment from Ivan again. So
Yep.
he said that we have multiple entities and have been used it for a long time, but he's actually looking for something easier to use, need consolidation as well. So that's why he's asking to compare Xero
Okay.
to Sage and the Ledger.
Okay. Uh, I I think the solution there is not necessarily change your accounting system, but change your reporting system, and um, that's where something like Calxa comes in, because Calxa, um, you know, wasn't the main topic of today's discussion, so I won't spend too much on it. But at Calxa, we do budgeting and reporting and connect directly to Xero and MYOB and QuickBooks, and we can do consolidated reporting across multiple entities. We can do reporting across different tracking categories. We can roll up tracking category budgets into the organization budget. You can do reporting on one tracking category from one organization and one from another. So talk to me about that afterwards, Ivan, and I'll be happy to give you some more information. But yeah, so I think while there are limitations on the budgeting and reporting in Xero, and Calcs is not the only other tool that can help with doing that outside of Xero. So my advice would be, if you've got complex needs, take the budgeting and the reporting outside of Xero. There are other tools other than Calxa, but I think we're the only ones that are, really specialize in not-for-profit reporting and the needs of not-for-profit organizations. So, but as Jean said, my contact details will be in the follow-up email. So happy to talk to you about that one afterwards.
Yep, he just
So
said that. Thank you, Mike, and then he'll like talk to you afterwards.
perfect. Yeah. So let's we'll come back to more questions after we've had a look at reports. But some of the things that I like about the reporting in Xero are that it's quite flexible with the custom layouts, in that you can choose which order the columns go in. It's quite easy to move the columns around. As I said when we were looking at that actual budget variance report, you can have actual budget variance for one department and the next department and the next department, and those different sort of combinations. And you can, I mean, I think you can make some messy reports as well, because you can have year-to-date information for one department and a month information for the next, and it's if you're not careful with what you're doing, you can mix up the wrong budget with the wrong actuals and that sort of thing. But that's just about learning how to use the tools and making sure you check your numbers afterwards. You can do formulas in the report layouts, so I'll show you how they work in a minute. They're fairly limited, but most people don't need anything very complex in a profit and loss type report. You are limited to the information that's available in that report. And one of the advantages of doing your reporting within the accounting system is that all the transactions are there. So if you've got a question about, why is my, consultancy expenses so high this month, you can just click on it, drill down, and see the transactions that have made up that amount. And this is the same with MYOB reports, QuickBooks reports as well. But it's an advantage of doing the reports in your accounting system generally. Whereas if you take them outside and you do them in something like, Fathom or Spotlight or Calxa, then you don't have that direct connection and you have to go back to Xero for the detail. It's, for most people, it's, other things compensate for those inconveniences. And then once you've customized the report, you can save them so you can have multiple customizations and different reports for different purposes. So there's a lot of flexibility in the structure of the reports in Xero, but there are, as with everything, there's limitations. It doesn't do everything that you might need. And again, what you might need will depend a lot on the size of your, maybe not so much the size of your organization, but the complexity. I've seen small organizations that need to manage multiple tracking categories because they've got, 20 different grants that are each for, $5,000 each or something, but there's still, paperwork involved and you need to separate the accounts for those and that sort of thing. So it's, if your organization's fairly simple, you can get away with using the reports within Xero, customize them to suit your needs. Some of the things that I find missing are there's no bundling or batching of reports. Xero does have report packs, but they only provide them to accountants. So an external accountant working in accounting practice can create a pack of reports and, like a pack of management reports and string them all together and produce them all at once at the end of each month. And, that's great, but most not-for-profits aren't simultaneously running accounting practices. So that's, a limitation from your perspective. There are some KPI reports, but and I'll show you them in a minute, but they're fairly limited. You're stuck with either the KPIs that are already there, or you can do some stuff with the formulas in the budget, in the report layouts, but then you're limited to just the information that's on the report. And often you want the KPI reports to bring in information that's not on the main report. So, it's, it depends how important that is to you. And then the reports are all pretty much backward looking. Yes, you can do a report of what your budget's going to be for the next 12 months, but you can't do a cash flow forecast. You can't do a balance sheet forecast or anything like that. So limitations there in looking forward to the future and doing that planning stuff. And then there's no styling of the reports. What you see is what you get. There's, if you like Xero's colors, that's fine. You can export them to a spreadsheet and play around with them there, but that's the extent of what you can do. Let me find my Xero again, and let's have a look at, I just move some stuff around here. Let's go and have a look at some of the reports. So under accounting and reports is the heading where and I'm going to focus just on the management style reports here. As with all accounting systems, there's a whole bunch of reports on, receivables, payables, inventory, payroll, those sort of things. Let's leave the transaction type stuff, the compliance stuff aside for today, and talk about the management style reports. Now, they're pretty much all in this financial section here, and you can put stars on them to, so you can find them find your favorites easily. And if there is a couple of KPI type reports, there's the executive summary. If I just go to the standard view so it's not so wide, And there you get a bunch of KPIs. So cash spent and received, profitability, gross profit, some balance sheet information, number of invoices issued and the average value, and gross profit margin, average debtor days, creditor days, that sort of thing. And it shows the current month and the previous month. And you can, select what month. You can show the summary only or the summary and ratios. I mean, one of the things that I do like about Xero's reports is that you can add this summary as a text box, put some commentary there, and that will be at the top of the report when you then go down and publish. Saves it within Xero as a published report with all the details on it. You can print it, you can export to Excel, PDF, etc. Yeah, so that's one option. The other KPI one, while we're on that topic, is that was the executive summary, the business performance. Gives you a few charts, and you can rearrange these a little bit and remove the ones you don't want, but you don't get a lot of, you can't add other charts, you can't choose your own KPIs to add there, and again, for a small organization, something like that is sufficient. Yeah. If we go and look at something like, let's go and look at one of these ones that I customized, and let me show you how I've done that. So I started off with just the standard profit and loss report, and you go edit layout, and up here you can add additional rows, you can add additional columns, and you can put page breaks and that sort of thing. You can export the whole thing to a PDF. So if I add a column, and I can add a date column will be actuals. If I add another budget form column, for example, I can then select which budget I want to use. So this is my revised budget for East that I didn't name very well. So I've got actuals for East, and that's the main budget for East, that's the actuals for East and the variance between them. And here's my revised budget. And you'll see here, you can choose the date range there. And this is what I said earlier about if you're not careful, you can mix up date ranges on a report that don't necessarily make sense. Sometimes you want columns for the month and for the year to date, or the quarter to date and that sort of thing. Just know what you are doing is I guess what you should be doing. And when it says year to date there, just be careful, because it does do it right up to the day. So I can rename that column to whatever heading I want to use. And with the rows, my gross profit there, for example, you'll see that is using a formula, and I've got trading income minus cost of sales. So you can do, if I just delete that and show you how I created it, it's fairly simple. You can use any of the headings that come above that. So I can go trading income minus cost of sales, or I could do, if I wanted to do my gross profit percentage there, for example, I could do let me put some brackets around that. I could do trading income, oops, minus cost of sales divided by trading income, for example. And that will now show on my report. If I go done, I'll just show you what that does. And you'll see my gross profit ratio is 0.91 there. The variance is minus 0.09, it's 0.92 there. Now, the thing is, you can't format that. You've just got numbers. Sometimes that's okay, you know, if you're exporting it to a spreadsheet, for example. So I can just save that and overwrite the previous one. And you can then export this spreadsheet to Excel or whatever. Sorry, export this report to a spreadsheet or to PDF. So that's the basics of, you know, you can have as many columns as you want there. You can, you know, rearrange them. It's a bit fiddly. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it works. So and it's, you know, much more flexible than what you get in many accounting systems. So have a look at it, have a play with it, and you'll see your recently updated reports there. I find my custom ones, I find it easiest just to go to custom here, and it'll list all my custom reports, and they're separated from all the others, and then they're easy to get to. So have a play with that. I think there are some useful things you can do with those reports, but you know, with those limitations. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that you can do with Xero's reports that not many other systems will do is the balance sheet, for example, you can run by tracking category. In MYOB, you can do their categories, you can run a balance sheet, but not their jobs. So you can do, so if I do this balance sheet and I want to compare it with, you know, 1 year ago, I can filter it on East Side, apply that, update. Maybe East Side wasn't a good one to do. Maybe North's got some balance sheet transactions. Hang on. If I do today, that should give me some better information. Yeah. So it shows me the share of the bank account, the receivables, the GST, and the current year earnings that's attributable to North. So there are some useful things that you can do there with Xero's reports. It's just about understanding the limitations of what you can do. Get familiar with editing the layout so you can play around with the columns, play around with those rows, and you'll be able to do, you know, some decent reports. As I said, and you know, don't forget to save them afterwards as a custom. I've done that before. I've worked on something for an hour or so, fiddled around with it, got it the way I wanted, and forgot to save it. You only make that mistake once. So that's should give you a, you know, a good idea of the capabilities of Xero for reporting. You know, they don't provide much in the way of standard layouts. You know, you've got the standard profit and loss and that sort of thing, but then you need to add your own columns for things like the tracking category reporting and that sort of stuff. So not hard to do, just takes a little bit of time. But once you've done it, save it as custom. And you do end up with a separate report for each tracking category for each month. But small organization, as I said, you can work with that. So as I said before, at Calxa, we take the reporting and the budgeting outside of Xero so that we can provide you with more flexible budgets. So you can do budgets for multiple years. You can roll up the project budgets up to the organization level. You can have different versions of the budget, as not just the approved one, and they're a bit easier to manage because all our approved budgets are together, all our revised budgets are together, and that sort of thing. And you can do future looking reports like cash flow forecasts and balance sheet forecasts. And as I think it was Ivan was asking earlier, you can consolidate across multiple Xero companies if you want to. So happy to actually, Jean, maybe we'll just ask the question if anybody is interested in more information on Calc. So if we can just have that quick poll, Jean, please. And
Yeah, sure. No worries. So let us put up the last poll we are having today. So I just launched it. Would you like to have more information on Calzer can help you with the budgets and report? Can you also see
we'll
the
put a
slide?
sorry, Jean, you go first.
Can you see the poll?
Yep.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. So we will put a link in the follow-up email where you can book a Zoom session with one of our team if you want more information, or you can go to the Connecting Up site. We do a donation program for small, medium, not-for-profits through Connecting Up and TechSoup, because we recognise that not everybody has the resources and still has complex reporting requirements. So so there is information there on the Connecting Up website as well as our own website, and Jean will send some afterwards. So do we have any more questions, Jean?
Yes, we do. So Anne is asking, are the custom layouts attached to the organizations or the person who create them? And
to the
if it is
organization.
personal, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, and what was the second part of that question?
Oh, I think the second part is you already answered, because she was thinking if personal, then can we share? But since the answer is to the organization, so
yeah, no, they're available to the organization. Yep.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it into the questions box and we'll be here to answer that. And also Mike just mentioned, we'll be sending this presentation deck plus the recording and also his details so that you can reach him if you needed to. So this will be sent in 1 to 2 business days. So thank you so much, Mike, for this really wonderful webinar. So before we wrap up, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think, as I said, just to summarize, I think, for a small organization, I think the budgeting and the reporting in Xero is quite adequate. But as you get more complex, then you need to start looking at doing something more sophisticated outside of Xero. So thank you everybody for attending, and listening and asking good questions.
No
Over
worries.
to
We
you,
got
Jean.
one last question. It's a tricky
Yeah.
one. So so Iwan is asking, so do you have other software that you recommend other than Xero?
Um, that is a hard one because it does depend on it depends on your needs, and you know it it's not without without understanding the organization and the structure and the complexity of it. Um, Xero works for many organizations, MYOB works for many organizations, QuickBooks Online works for many organizations. Um, they all do debits and credits, um, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. And then there are people who have need the much more complex systems like the NetSuites and the MYOB Advanced and those sort of things. But yeah, you need to put a lot of thinking, investigation. Again, I'm happy to have that discussion offline because it really wants an analysis of what your needs are to be able to say what's the best accounting system for you, because I don't think there is any best accounting system for everybody.
Yes, indeed, because it's really there's so many factors that affecting the selection of the software, and budgeting is also one of the factors. So it would be great if you can contact Mike for this so that he can get you answer more specifically after understanding more of your situation. So he's also asking, are there limits to the numbers of bank accounts transaction that Xero can handle?
I think their limitation is more on the number of invoices per month. What it is, I can't remember, but it's quite a lot. But I am aware of people using sort of e-commerce systems and then importing every single transaction into Xero and quickly running into the limits there. But I'd be surprised with a not-for-profit organization. On the tracking category side of things, they publish a limit of 100 tracking categories, or they have two lists of tracking categories, and it's basically 100 in each list. But it's a soft limit. They don't enforce it, and I have known people to have 200 or 300, and they can't report on them within Xero, but the Xero reporting gets very clunky when you get to even 100 in terms of tracking categories. But by using something like Calxa, then that's not an issue.
Thank you, Mike. So he just added, and someone saying that Xero is like having 2,000 transaction is the soft limit. So is that true?
Can't remember. I can't remember what the number is, and I don't know what time frame that is either. I know there is a limit there somewhere, but I can look it up and I can find out for you. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So maybe after I look it up, and then I can also
Yeah.
put it in the follow-up email so that
Yep.
everyone is can get this answer. So he just said thank you very much for this.
Good.
No worries. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again, Mike, for this wonderful presentation. I'm sure there's a lot to digest, but don't worry, because everyone will be getting the recording plus the information that will be following. So I guess most of you are having my screen now, because apart from our accounting system, we do have other kinds of trainings options. So this one is a marketing topics. So since you already joined us for this beautiful event, we would like to offer you a little discount for this. So there are 7 mistakes not-for-profit make on social media and how to avoid them. We have a really great guest, Alicia Hancock, the director from Hancock Creative. So she's really good at our social media strategies. So with these webinars, you'll be understanding how to target your market and how to choose the best platform for you and for your organizations. And one tricky part is about like how to balance out using quality image at the same time to make everything real. Because nowadays people love real things, but how could you balance out? And also some evaluation and analyze that she'll be providing. So if you're interested, please feel free to just scan the QR code on the screen with the discount code. Don't forget about that. We can also put that discount code onto the follow-up email so that you can have it $10 discount and then enjoy the sections. All right, thank you very much again. And thank you, Mike. So we'll hope to see you very soon for the next webinar. Goodbye.
Thank you.